Okay, so I have a little project set up. So my site is the project, and then I have this accounts app, which will handle users and authentication. And then I have this main app, which is just going to be whatever our main application will be. So I added everything to the settings. So I'm going to start by going into the URLs. And so I'm going to, first I'm actually going to talk a little bit about class-based views. So we haven't done that in Django. Some of you may have played around with that. We saw it a little bit with forms, like the model forms. It's a class, uses classes, but our views have been functional just in part because there's less magic. So when you write a functional view, you can see everything that's happening, and the Django class-based views really abstract everything. So it would be easy to be able to write class-based views without understanding anything. So just to avoid that, we've been doing function views. But the built-in Auth stuff that comes with Django uses class-based views. So I'm just going to introduce that very quickly. And we'll do that with this main app thing. All right, so let's start with a routing. Include. All right, so we'll go to main app. We'll create the URLs file. And let's just say nothing. I'm just going to have one route here. And the view that we want will actually be a class-based view. So I can write that now. It'll look a little differently, but it's actually simpler than functional views. So I'm going to do okay. So we'll talk about this in a sec, but we'll write it out first. So class, so it's not going to be a function, it'll be a class, main view. And as you might expect, Django provides us with some basic class-based views that we can inherit from. So the simplest, the most basic one is just called view. And here's some of the documentation. So you look at the Django documentation, introduction to class-based views. So here's the most basic one from Django.views import view, and we'll use that for now. But you can take a look if you're interested in this. Okay, so imported view, and now we're going to inherit there. And we really only need a couple things here. So the way that this view, there are lots of other views that are more specialized and have additional functionality. But the way this one works is instead of writing like with a functional view, we would do if request.method equals get, do some stuff. If it's post, then do some other stuff and so on. So rather than doing that, we can just write the method that we want. So if we want to handle get requests, we just write get. And I'll also take the request object. And then just like a view, what we need to return is an HTTP response object. So Django's built-in HTTP response. So we can do that. I think I'm just gonna, to save myself this minor hassle, I'm just gonna do from HTTP response, and I'll do return. Okay. So here's our view now. So now we can handle GET requests, and we're going to return this HTTP response. And the only difference here is that instead of just passing in our function, we're going to have to pass in the class, but this path function expects another function here. So this is kind of like a wrapper around this class, which will, this as view function, you call it, and it will return a function. So you don't have to worry about that, but if you want to use a class, then you have to use it like this, with calling it as view. All right. So we've got our views here. So I'm going to make migrations and then run the server. So I'm not going to use any models for this. So Python. I shouldn't have to do this, but if I had made models, so. And then okay, so I get that. So that is working now. I'm using a class-based view. So there's more to it, but that's the basics. You can look through the documentation. Okay. So now what we really care about is this accounts thing. So similar to what we did yesterday, we have this, this authentication or accounts or whatever we want to call it. We could call it anything, but the README for today uses accounts, so that's what I'm going to use. So we have this app that's specialized for authentication called accounts, and we're going to use it. So Django has a whole bunch of customized authentication stuff, but it's not completely built out. So you get some views, but you don't get templates, for example. So there are things that you're going to have to, it's kind of like a mix and match. And we'll see that. So first, I'm going to go back to my project's URLs, and I'm going to route traffic here, accounts, and it will be include on here, create urls.py. And I'm going to just create 3 routes. I'm going to do login, logout, and sign up. So first will be login. I'll do these one at a time. So login. So I could just write my own view, but Django gives me a view. It comes for free with Django. So I can import it and then use it. So from Django.trib.auth. Where is that? Let's see. Views, yes. Okay, so what we're doing, usually we have our own views right here, right? But here in Django itself actually has a whole bunch of class-based views that we can use. So we just import it, and just like as though we had written it ourselves, we can use it. So there's something called a login view, which is convenient because we want to handle login. So I'm going to do views.login view, and login view is a class-based view. It's not a function, so I need to, basically make it a callable with this as view. So now we have this route set up, this login set up, and when anyone goes to /login, then this view is going to get called. So let's see what that looks like. Okay, so yet template does not exist at blah, 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 and it's looking for registration/login. So I don't have anything called registration, but if we look here at the source code for login view, you can see that there's this class attribute called template name, and that is pointing to registration/login. So there's some, as you might expect, there's some default stuff already there. So if we want to, follow the official Django pattern, we would create something called registration and then put our login.html there. We could also override that. And that's what we'll do, just to do it. So template name, we can actually pass this some quargs to override some of that default stuff. So template name. In this case, I'm going to do accounts/login.html. Okay, so now here's the template that I want this view to use. So I have to go through and create that just like I would ordinarily if I were using a functional based view. So I'll create this templates. And then login. And I'm just going to do form. You can see if this works. Accounts login. Let me try. Okay, so now we go here, and here's the form. So again, just from reading the docs or looking at source code or whatever, I know that there's going to be a value called form passed to this template. So Django has given me a form, or sorry, it's given me a view which contains a form, but it's given me this view, but it hasn't given me the template. So it's given me like, I'm 2/3 of the way there, but I still have to write my own view here. That's a little weird. So I'm going to do my normal form stuff. And we'll do input. do the CSRF token. And form, save that. Okay, so now we have this here. And I don't have any users. I haven't created any users yet. So I'm just going to real quick create a super user. Run the server again. And I'm going to log in as so a super user is just a user. It's a user with just a specific permission. So I'm logged in now. I'm logged in, I have a session ID. But when I logged in, because Django's views is doing a whole bunch of stuff by default, it's redirecting me after I log in. And it's redirecting me to accounts/profile. And I don't have that route. So I could create that route, or I can tell Django, redirect me somewhere else. So I'm going to tell Django to redirect me somewhere else. There's a couple ways you can do that. One way is in the settings. You can do, it's like login. Let's do direct URL. And let's say that will be, what is this? Counts, my site. Yeah, we'll just do my site. So I go back to login. Login. Oh, it's main. Okay, so now that works. So I log in. If I log in correctly, I get redirected to main. Again, I'm overriding a couple default things that Django is doing. Here I'm saying, if I successfully log in, redirect me to this main instead. So going back here, we've now taken care of the login. Any questions about that? Okay, so let's do the log out. So we use that. Let's see. So there's a login view. Here's a list of all the authentication views. There's a login view, which we just used, and we can see some of the attributes there. There's also a logout view. So let's use that. And we'll have to call it as view. And we'll try doing it like this for now. Okay, so we shouldn't have to do, as you might remember from yesterday, the logout. I mean, we could do other things, but it's fairly straightforward. I think by default, we're actually going to get redirected to a page, but we can fix that. So. All right, so that is accounts. Okay, so I just logged out. I went to log out. My app, my project knows about this route, and I get this built-in Django thing, the Django admin. So that's where it defaults to. We can actually change that. So if we look we could look at the documentation for logout. And we see, so there's a next page attribute, the URL to redirect to after logout. Defaults to settings.logout redirect URL. So I'll do, so one way to do this is to add another, instead of login redirects, it's logout redirect URL. We just add another configuration setting in our app. We could do it that way. We can also configure that kind of as a one-off thing. So it's called next page. Something like, so log out. Let's go back to login. So okay. We'll log in again. Get redirected to the main page. I'm going to go to log out. And I log out successfully, and then I get redirected back to the login page. So you can do, you know, whatever you want there, but that's how you can configure that. So again, you can either, you know, pass in kind of one-off values here, or you can change your like global configuration here. So log in, log out, so on. All right, so that's the logout view. Now the last thing we're going to do is the sign up view. So signing up, for whatever reason, is not really taken care of with the authentication. So we're going to have to write this ourselves. So path to sign up, and we'll have to write. We'll write another class. So we'll do sign. We'll call it just sign up, and as view. And we'll have to import that. So from and then we're going to have to write that. So this is not going to be a function, it'll be a class.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Can we subclass the login and log out so that we can make those changes in the views page?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe we can try doing that real quick. We can do the log out. Let's do.
You'll need to get rid of the views dot in front of it, I think.
Oh yeah, thank you. What was that called? Let's see. So we're gonna have to import this. So from Django dot. It's the login. What was that? Towards log out view. I think that should be enough. Let me comment this out. So I'm gonna log in. I try to log out. And it does the same. So it redirected me back to the login. So lots of ways to do the same thing in Django. Okay, so let's do the sign up. Get rid of some of this stuff. Long views. Okay, so sign up. So we can't use the a built-in view here. Like we don't have a sign up view for whatever reason. I don't know why. We don't have that. There are other things. There are a whole bunch of views. So we just saw in the main app views we inherited from view. That's kind of the simplest one. But there's a whole bunch of other ones that have more specialized functionality. And one of them is called create view. So create view for creating a new thing like a user, for example. So we can import that. So it's from Django dot views. Django dot views dot generic, I believe, import create view. And then we'll inherit from create view. And we can check out the documentation for create view. Okay, so we have create view looking at the documentation. As you can see, there's a complex hierarchy that this class has. It's inheriting from view and then process form view and a whole bunch of other things. So it's got a lot of, there's a lot going on here. We can see there's template name suffix, create view, get post. We don't need to worry about too much of this stuff. We're just going to use the defaults, but we're going to need to give it a model. And the model, since what we want to create is a new user, I'm going to use the built-in Django user, but the strong recommendation is that you use subclass user, and we know how to do that. So I'm going to do this just as a to keep things kind of simple, but from Django.triv.auth.models. User. So the model is going to be user, and then there's something called, there's another attribute. And we could, so this is looking at code. This is kind of how it works. Sometimes it's a pain. But there is, I forget where it is, but there's an attribute called, it's an attribute called form class. And we're going to use another thing. So there, again, there's lots of different ways to do this, but we're going to, there's a built-in user creation form. we're going to have to import that as well. So from auth.forms. So if you're wondering why is there a user creation form but not a user creation view, the answer is I don't know. But you can achieve a similar thing like this. URLs. So sign up, we have this route. Just to review real quick. So sign up route, we have our class, which we've just created, sign up as view. And sign up is going to inherit from create view. So create view is like a view function, except it's a class. There's a whole bunch of default stuff happening. And we just have to tell it what model we want to use. So we want to create a user, basically. And then the form class. So we want to create a user and we want to use the user creation form to do it. So let's go back here. So not login, but sign up. Template does not exist. Add account sign up. So auth user form.html. So again, we have this issue where we haven't told it what template to use. So we could, let's see, we could tell it in here basically. So when we call the view, just add this keyword argument for template name. But since we already are subclassing it, we might as well just say template name, and that will be counts. And then we'll create that. Basically the same thing, so I'm just going to copy that. Okay, so we have a sign up view now, so this should work. Okay, so now we have the default. Obviously, there are things you could do to customize this, but this is the standard default if you don't do anything else. So we'll create another user. And I submit, and it says improperly configured at accounts sign up. No URL to redirect to. So again, there's another configuration thing that we could specify. Let's see if we can find it in the documentation. So create view. What's that? Yeah, so it's hard to find the attributes because they exist. A lot of them are inherited, but there is a success URL we can also specify. And if you sign up successfully, well, let's say you'll go to login. So sign up. Okay, so I signed up, that user is created, I go to login, I try to log in with the new user, U3. Oh, whoops. Okay, so again, I'm getting default Django behavior here, where it's resubmitting. Again, I didn't tell it to do that, right? I didn't have to do if request equals post, check if the form is valid. If it's not valid, then resubmit. I didn't have to do any of that. It just happens. because they're, as you've definitely noticed, there are common patterns when doing these things. So I'll enter the actual password, and then I get redirected here. Okay, so I also want to talk about protecting a given view. Okay, so if we want to, so right now we have users, then we have this app. They're kind of operating in parallel systems, so nothing's actually using anything else. But we could protect this main route that we have in our main application. We could actually do that in here. So we could do something like if request.user.is authenticated, we could do whatever, right? So you could do all that logic here. But there are also some other ways of doing that obviously that's a common thing you'd want to do. So Django has ways of doing that. So we can use a decorator in order to do that. So I'm going to look up. So here's an example from the documentation. So you can decorate a class. So for example, you could decorate a particular method in a class. You can also decorate the whole class. So login required is another decorator. So rather than checking yourself, if blah, 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 it just handles all that boilerplate for you. So I'm going to import both of these things, login required and decorator. Okay, and then I'm going to decorate the class with the decorator, and we'll take the decorator. And then name, okay. So dispatch is a method. It's kind of like the fundamental method that you don't really use directly, but all of these views have a dispatch method. So you don't need to worry about that, but that's what it's doing. So any method in this class will have this protection. So method decorator, login required, name dispatch. I think that should be good. I'll try going to main now. I'm logged in, so I'm gonna log myself out there. Try to go to main again. And I can't see that. I get redirected. So there's some default behavior here. It's redirecting me to the login with this query parameter. So use 3. Oops. And then I can go to the main page now. So that's it. It's a little convoluted. It's not entirely seems inconsistent, at least to me, but I'm not a Django developer, so sure they have their reasons. But just to review real quick, so the Django auth, django.contrib.auth, which is in your apps. Let's look at the settings. Right here, this installed apps, this comes for free. That's where this stuff is coming from. So django.contrib.auth. Because that's there, we can have access to these built-in views that exist. Let's go here. So things like the login view and the logout view, which we have customized here. So login, logout, there's a few other things that come kind of built in. Sign up is not one of them. So if you want to have users be able to sign up, then you need to implement that yourself. But it's fairly easy to do using a lot of the Django views. So you can inherit from create view. So create view, a class-based view that takes care of a lot of the standard boilerplate for creating stuff. And you can give it a model, which is what you want to create, the form class, which is the form you want to use to create it, the template name, which is the path to the template you want to use to render the form. And then, optionally, you can pass it a success URL, where they're going to get redirected when they submit, and a whole bunch of other stuff as well. So yeah, that's the basics. So yesterday we kind of saw how we could do this stuff at a lower level. This is how you can do it at a higher level. Any questions?